In part 9 of the 2022 Canes opponent preview series, I preview the 2022 FSU Seminoles, our opponent in Hard Rock Stadium on November 5th. Well, let's take a look at FSU. Think about it. Many people talk about Mike Norvell's seat being hot. Let's clear up that issue now. Mike Norvell is not on the hot seat this season. And the reason why you have to understand is because he inherited a big mess left when Willie was canned, and because the goodwill he's built up there, and his work ethic and positivity is just off the charts. Now think about it. It's now his third year at FSU, and now he has greater resources than any coach of school history outside of Bobby and Jimbo. They opened the checkbook for him this offseason. They brought in new support staff members. They brought in analysts with game planning, assistants with recruiting, and all that to catch up to bigger powers like us, Bama, Georgia, etc. Now, Mike Norvell has to start winning. That's the main thing. Otherwise, his seat will be much warmer going into 23. Now, think about it. The defense really stepped up last year. Now, if the offense, which got some key players from the portal, can have the same growth that the defense did, they could be in a bowl game for the first time since 19. Let's look at their offense. We all know it starts and ends with Travis. 5-2 in the last 7 starts, and he has a better supporting cast this time. And their wide receiver room got 4 Power 5 transfers that came in, and they also really got heavier on the O-line and in the backfield. They bring in Micah Pittman from Oregon, who was the team's best receiver back in spring ball. In the middle of that O-line, they brought in a Wisconsin transfer in Caden Lyles. And their running back room has a very deep group, and it's led by redshirt sophomore Treshaun Ward, who had 515 yards and 4 touchdowns last year, while averaging 6.4 yards per carry. Now, listen, FSU wasn't terrible offensively, but negative plays were way too many for Mike Norvell and that offensive staff to manage. They gave up 351 yards on tackles for loss. Only 11 teams allowed more. And they were 105th nationally in third down conversions, just 34.9%. You're not going to win that way when you do that. See, once it gets behind the chains, you could say nighty-night to their drives. But, the other hand, they were very good in the red zone. Not only did they score on more than 90% of their trips inside the 20, but they got touchdowns 73% of the time, almost 74% of the time. That was 6 nationally. Norvell and the staff are hoping that when the experience and talent they brought in on the O-line will reduce those drive-killing negative plays, and bringing in some playmakers at skilled positions will help them overcome that when it does happen. Let's look at their defense. It's always year 1 to year 2 when you see how things are. When you look at Adam Fuller's defense, that's the defensive coordinator. It was one of the worst in 2020 and through the first 4 games of last year. The final 8 games, they got better. And they had some few important changes on their defensive staff. Biggest one being freshman Kevin Knowles and Omarion Cooper winning jobs in the secondary. And you add a veteran in Jamie Robinson moving from nickel to safety. The back end became pretty much solid. And you have a very good defensive front. You have probably a first-round pick next year in Jermaine Johnson on the defensive line. He has 70 tackles, 18 tackles for loss. But the vast majority on that 2-deep defense is back. It's important to note that they have Johnson and fellow defensive end Keir Thomas, who combined for 18.5 of the team's 33 sacks last year. But both of them are moved on. Okay, basically Johnson and Keir Thomas are gone. They're gone. They're no longer there. Now how do you replace that production? Well, they go back to the portal. They got a player from the University of Albany in Jared Verse. He was the top prospects in the portal this offseason. At the FCS level in 15 games, he had 14 and a half sacks. And they'll have a very stout pair of D tackles for him to work with in Fabian Lovett and Robert Cooper. And in the portal, they went here again at linebacker, adding former UCF player Tatum Bethune, who had 108 tackles last year. He joins Randy Shannon, who is now the Seminoles co-defense coordinator. Okay. Let's look at their special teams. They're very solid. They bring back Ryan Fitzgerald and Alex Mastromana at place kicker and punter, respectively. Fitzgerald was 10 for 13 of field goals, the longest being 53, and Mastromano doesn't give you a big average, 42.7, but his 93 straight punts without a touchback is amazing. He downed 18 of those punts inside the 20. But the biggest problem has been a lack of quality returners. Not only do they not have the X plays, but their punt returners have struggled with ball possession and letting too many balls land and allowing extra yardage. Now, Pittman did well there while at Oregon. He averaged 10 yards per return. And he's going to be their guy back there this year. When you look at their schedule, you go 3-6 in 2020 and 5-7 last year. The next step is have a 7-5 or 8-4 season. And that's there. Now, while the schedule is challenging, yes, they have to go to New Orleans to take on LSU. They open with Duquesne. And then they get Louisville on a Friday night out of a bye week. Then they have BC at home and Wake at home before going to NC State. Then October 15th, the big test, Clemson comes to Tallahassee. So we're really going to know. And you know Dabo's been wanting that revenge game for a couple years now. Let's see where FSU really is, after that Clemson game. Let's get a better idea where they are. They have Georgia Tech coming before they come to Hard Rock on November 5th. Then they go to Syracuse the following week before getting the Napier Daily Double. His former team, Louisiana, who comes in FSU's home finale on November 19th. Then a short week to take on Napier's new team, the Florida Gators, on a Friday night after Thanksgiving to close the regular season. I got to tell you, when I look at that 7-5-8-4, that's definitely right there for them. It's right there. We're going to get their national ranking is 36, and let's see where they are. I'd be interested, believe it or not, to see what the next step up is for Mike Norvell. You cannot take a step back this year. He cannot do that. So I'm going to say for FSU, I have to agree. I'm going to say more on the same end as about 7-5 in 2022. In part 10 of the 2022 Canes opponent preview series, I will preview the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets.